All right. Hello and welcome everyone to the Devstream 175 breakdown. We have a lot to talk about because this is going to be pretty much all the information we're going to need for the rest of the year, as this is the last Devstream of the year. For that, these are all sections that are going to be blown out into their own notes, so this could take quite a minute. In addition to this, we also essentially have a dev workshop on some explanations around cross-save, so get ready for a ride. First and foremost, Whispers in the Walls. This is obviously the next update. For this, we will know when this releases on December 7th at the TGAs. We are going to get all of the launch information for when Whispers in the Walls is going to actually come out. So we know when we'll know or when the update will actually be here. I got exceedingly excited whenever it said December 7th because I really did think that was the release date. Unfortunately, it seems it'll be a little later than that. Hopefully not too much later than that so that they have time for any hot fixes or things before, usually D takes their winter break. But we'll find out on the 7th. Please don't say like the 20th or something. That would be very bad probably. With that, things that we kind of already know, we are going to be getting the Grimoire, the book secondary weapon with this quest. For those of you that have seen that is coming with this quest. That is going to be a reward from the quest. Also, those Grimoires are going to have two different types of special mods. So they're going to have kind of some of their own special mods that are going to be either Exilus or not between the two different variations. And then it will also use secondary mods. That's kind of what's going on with the books. To start us off there, we get a new syndicate that we only know the name of, that apparently we will hear more about at the Game Awards. It's called the Kavia. Also, we know that Corvex, the new Warframe, is going to be farmed from there. In addition, with this new stuff, we are going to be getting shard mixing, which is the Tau shards, or not the Tau shards, but just the Archon shards in general. We are going to be able to mix any two and get a new color of shard for 3 total new shards. That are going to have various effects. We saw like a hyper placeholder set of stats for the green shard, but honestly, I don't even think it's worth going into, and I would much rather just have what the release version of it is before I make any, judgment on what those 3 shards are going to mean for builds going forward. It seems like, in general, the idea is that maybe these shards are a bit more specific and not just raw stat-based, but we'll see how everything goes whenever the update actually launches. We can find out what those final stats look like. Also, there may or may not be Tau versions, though I would probably err on the side that there would be Tau versions just for consistency across all of the shard types. In addition to that, with Whispers, we are getting 3.5 new game modes, which really seems like just 3 full new game modes, 3 or 4 full new game modes, really. With the first fully new one being Alchemy, where we don't know a ton besides that there is a crucible that we will need to feed elements to do something with elemental forces. This, and you can see kind of back here, there's like, this is what the crucible is. It's like a big mixer for the elemental juice. This will do something. This reads to me as being kind of maybe an endless version of what the new Sabotage is, where you put like the fuel cells in various places and things. And just having an endless version of that mechanic is kind of interesting, so that seems neat. And then we have the most interesting new game mode, which is Netra Cells. So they showed this off just a little bit, and essentially these are a new remix on what the Derelict Vaults are. For anyone that doesn't know what the Derelict Vaults are, that's where you farm the corrupted mods. If you don't know what that is, look at my guide on it and go do it, because it's hyper worth it. This is going to have you matchmake in to the mission, and there will be 4 terminals where there will be 4 debuffs. Those are like our dragon keys. In order to open the things you need to open, you need to pick them up. So instead of having to bring the key into the mission, the key is just available in the first room, and each of you will pick one, or as a solo player, you will take all 4 debuffs, and then you will do whatever the mission entails. We didn't see much beyond that, but this seems like a very interesting take on just doing Derelict Vaults. It's a much more accessible, easy to matchmake into style. I think it's an improved version of the idea, honestly. It's also going to be our higher level content. You'll be able to do a limited amount of it per week, and there are going to be Archon shards in these missions. All of which sounds great to me personally. In addition, we are getting a spicy assassination. I think this is more the half than anything else, where we are going to have a new boss that has different mechanics to get to said boss. This is going to be a big part of the clan operation, which is Gargoyles Cry, which we're going to get to in a moment. But there are at least, or at most, 3 variants of this boss. There seemed to be a little bit of an argument on stream about exactly how many variations of this boss there are. So maybe it's 3 primary variants with some elemental differences or something. That part was kind of unclear. But at the very least, it seems like you're not going to fight the same boss every time, which seems interesting. And then we are getting a mirror defense style mission, but it's Whispers style. So that's probably going to mean that we're going to get a lab side and then the man in the wall Whispers side in terms of what the tile set is going to look like. But it wasn't clear whether or not this is just mirror defense, which is kind of flood plus mobile defense in an endless style, or if this is going to be kind of like the fully unique mixing that mirror defense has done with its first iteration, which happened to be mixing it with flood. This could be something different. In addition to that, we are getting Arcane Dissolution. This is essentially a dusting system, for those of you that know what that is, where you can break down your arcanes that you have extras of, like, say, for example, the hundreds of Steel Path arcanes I have just kind of hanging around. And you'll be able to burn those into resources that you can then spend on different pools of arcanes for you to pick up, or for you to, like, roll for, essentially. So, for example, there will be, like, a bucket of, like, these are the Eidolon arcanes that you can spend some of this resource to get a new arcane from, like, this roll, essentially. Doing that will give you one of those arcanes, and then, you can get things such as Energize, that'll be more rare, and basically, you can farm any arcanes and then re-roll those into different ones if you're just unhappy with what you have, or if you have extra. This, I think, is really good, because number one, means every single extra arcane you get from any place in the game does have value to you, whether you are trading it or not. And I think that's really important, because it means that just like the general farm of really anything, like say like the Zarmon Cascade, I have all of those arcanes now. So picking one up doesn't mean anything to me. But with this system, no matter where I pick up an arcane, it is at least worth whatever this currency ends up being called. We don't know what its name is. I'm calling it dust for now. So that is going to be pretty interesting, I think, going forward. And it'll be pretty interesting to see how the market kind of responds to that as well in terms of what these arcanes are worth. Because as it stands, the additional Steel Path arcanes that we normally get, those are like, 10 plat for a maxed one, making like each copy like worth half a plat, essentially. But I wonder if this kind of draining a lot of those out of the economy is going to make those arcanes maybe actually more expensive by virtue of people just usually breaking them all down into this dust to try and get energizes or whatever else. I think that'll be kind of interesting to see as we get into the update. But yeah, that's what's going on with Whispers kind of generally. Obviously, I'm not even mentioning the thing that we all know, which is that there is a big giant quest associated with this, with 2 new tile sets and so on and so forth, and I am very excited for it. In addition, Corvex is, of course, coming with this update, and we got to see his entire kit. This is what he looks like. He is a radiation concrete-themed Warframe who looks, I think, very cool. He's super neat. His passive is that everything he does procs radiation, including shooting guns. So he's going to stack up a bunch of radiation on everybody. His one lets him, like, just two-fist slam pillars into the ground. Those create, like, pulsing fields that do radiation and slow enemies, which seem to start at a fairly good base size, and he can put down multiple of them. His 2 is to create 2 big concrete walls and then like clap slam them together in front of himself. That buffs his 1 and seems to scale based off of maybe how much radiation is around or something to that effect. Its damage didn't look particularly amazing, but this was a relatively like low modded or like, not optimized version of the Warframe. But it's an interesting ability and looked like it felt good at the very least. His 3, they said, was just kind of hard to show off. Essentially, you are building stacks that's going to make him and all of his allies immune to status and give him some other buffs as well. And then his 4 is essentially a short duration chest beam that like marks all the enemies it hits, and then they explode multiple times based on how much radiation they already have on them, which is also fairly interesting and, synergizes with his 1 and just, putting radiation on all the enemies in general will power this ability up. He seems cool. I think his visual design is stellar. It's not what I was expecting at all. I was much more expecting a Warframe that is, much more visually similar to like the vessels themselves are and they're in the tile set. But he's a super unique looking design. He kind of like also like breathes, and like his whole body shifts as he's just kind of idle around. And he's super cool looking. I think he's very interesting design wise, and I cannot imagine what a concrete prime would look like in the future. But eventually we'll get there. With that, he is going to be coming out with a new arc gun and hammer signature weapons as well. Those are pretty normal outside of some of the new melee and arc gun things that we're going to be getting alongside that, which we're about to get into. But he seems neat. Can't wait to farm him. He's going to come from the new Syndicate. In addition, we have a lot of quality of life coming with Whispers. First and foremost, calling in arc guns, and this is like some minor things, but I think that they will end up actually mattering quite a bit in dependent cases. Number one, all of the ground weapons have been variously buffed to be more competitive, at least with regular primaries. This sounds fantastic. Having it so that the big arc gun that you temporarily call in is actually meaningful and does a lot of damage to enemies is a pure positive to me, whether that's like the Mausolon or whatever else. It being powerful enough to make a difference whenever you call it in and feel good, I think is where you want that to be. And in addition to that, calling in a weapon will give you overguard. So what they showed is whenever you call it down, it gives you 2,000 overguard, which is very serious amounts of overguard on regular path and is not negligible completely on steel path. So I think that'll be interesting as well, for making it so that whenever you call this in, if these weapons are competitively powerful, or at least like, some of them are pretty good and better than what you would normally be rocking with most primaries, maybe not even all, or definitely not all, things like, Torrid Incarnate and such like that. I can't imagine those things are going to be competed with. But just like getting the defenses and having like a strong gun to get into, I think is going to be interesting, and we'll see if that kind of pans out. Also, information on the story skip. That is not happening. We're not doing that. That's not going to occur at all. However, there are some buffs coming and a sort of something skip that is going to be releasing with this. So, first and foremost, Mastery Rank is no longer needed for any story quests going forward. We don't know exactly what this looks like yet, but it seems like they are removing Mastery Rank as a like progression blocker in all cases. And as someone who just started the free-to-play through, and where I got to play the first 3 days of that very quickly, and we are past the second dream, and now I need to wait multiple days until I'm MR5 before I can do any more story quests or really progress any further. Thank goodness. I can't wait for this to be implemented, because the Mastery Rank having a 24-hour cooldown per Mastery Rank, and just like having to wait until you're MR5, and then having to wait, another 12 hours for the weapon that you need to build at MR5, in order to be able to get to the War Within, is hugely frustrating and really sucks. And I was one that was on the field of just making it so that ranking up Mastery Rank never had a cooldown as long as you were successful. But this is even better. It is going to be curious to see exactly how fast this allows you to progress through all of the story missions. But it is going to be a huge boon to just like getting through that content very quickly. I can confidently say that at the very least, I could be getting ready for New War right now, if I didn't have to wait for all of the mastery test stuff in order to get through the story. And this also does mean that you could very, very easily, if you really knew what you were doing, do Second Dream on your very first day of playing with relatively little trouble, and especially if you were receiving help from a friend. With that, we also have the new Initiate Power Level Pack. So, for those that don't know, in the past they've had like the Ember Initiate Pack, which basically just gives you Ember and a few other things, some Platinum and yada yada, gives you some items in order to like, kind of have like be a new player pack type thing. Instead of doing the story skip stuff, they've instead kind of, they're going to make it so that this Initiate Power Level Pack is giving you things that are leveled and kind of just ready to be used. So that's going to be like regular Rhino, ranked up and modded, regular Nova, ranked up and modded, maybe a gun or two in there as well. And I think that's pretty interesting. I don't think that this is like pay to win or any nonsense like that. Like, I can't expect that, you're not going to get a full build Rhino with like all of the Umbral mods and some such nonsense like that. In all likelihood, all this is really going to be is, hey, you can buy this pack. Here's a Rhino with the Loner build from Duviri, which is more than fine for the entire regular star chart, I'll have you know. And maybe here's a Gunner, too, that can also totally do regular star chart. This is just a way to, like, let people get into the game and basically just be like, hey, here's your main character. Don't worry about upgrading it. Just play. And I think that that has a very fine place in the game. And I'm hoping that that goes over well. If it's really interesting, we might even try it as a not free to play through, I suppose, depending on how much those packs cost, and could be pretty interesting. In addition, alongside the not a story skip that we are getting, once you are 2 Whispers, we are now going to get the Whispers PC, which is not what it's officially called, but it's what I'm calling it, which is going to contain the catch-up documents. So each of these is basically like the lore for the individual things that it is. Whether that is like, what are Sentinels? Who is Hunhao? What is the Void? What is Lotus? Like, I would assume the conflict.txt is the major conflict of the story. Who the fuck is the Drifter? What's a Kalimos? Who's Ballas? Like, all of that stuff is just going to be literally in plain text on the Whispers PC for you, which, if you don't know what the Whispers PC is, that's okay. Just play the quest when it comes out. It'll become pretty obvious pretty soon. And yeah, this is a super interesting way to have people be able to just be reminded what all of these things are. Seems good to me. And we are still not done with the different quality of life things and kind of buffs that are coming through. With the melee changes that are coming up, with melee having fallen behind primary and secondary weapons, we are getting Tenno Kai. So this is going to be unlocked after Whispers, so you will not have this pre-Whispers, but Whispers is going to be a main story quest, so you will get this. You are going to be able to essentially get new mods and melee arcanes that give you Tenno Kai. Tenno Kai is a buff that you will proc or get after a certain number of hits, or there's various different ways to earn it from the mods that give it. And whenever you have these stacks, you are going to have super fast, costless, heavy attacks. So that has a huge amount of potential. For anyone that doesn't know, heavy attacks right now scale based on your combo counter. So if you have 2x combo counter, which is the usual for heavy builds because we use corrupt charge, they do double damage. If you have 12x combo counter, they do 12 times damage. So if you can consistently keep yourself at 12 and you do heavy attacks within that, you are going to be getting massive damage all of the time. Now, this is not going to fix melee weapons by itself. A big thing with melee weapons right now is that they basically proc slash or are useless, and that's how all of the heavy attack weapons kind of are right now. If you are the Azothane, fantastic. Heavy attacks go burr, they always proc slash. If you're Scythes, same deal. If you're Nikanas, same deal, except for the one that doesn't, which is unfortunately bad because of it. That is baseline, though, interesting to give us kind of another way to build, kind of bringing back hybrid builds in some way. But in addition to that, we are also getting melee arcanes. There's going to be roughly 9 of these on launch, and you are getting an arcane slot for all of your melees. Presumably, Zaws are going to have the double arcane setup, much like our secondary kit guns do, because they have the regular arcane slot that melees have, and then the Zaw slot, so you'll be able to equip a normal melee arcane, or, well, what's about to be a normal melee arcane, and our classic Exodia choices at the same time by all appearances at the very least. And that's going to be pretty interesting. I think that it's really going to be mod dependent how much the Tenno Kai stuff is really going to matter, and if there are going to be ways to kind of build into it that aren't totally dedicated to only ever using your melee weapon. But it seems super interesting just in general. Also, we are not done with the quality of life changes yet. Void Rig / Bone Widow changes. So these are getting mechanical changes to their fights. Some of these are active now. With the changes to their fights that are active now in terms of making them much easier and like much just better to do, especially for new players who need to do them to get to New War. These fights are much simpler to do. You can actually deal damage to the Necromechs without, like, the very, very specific, like, kind of aiming and only certain things working that was happening before. And it just seems much, much better. If there's not any other huge major changes that are, like, rebuffing them back to what they once were that's coming with this update, I think I'm going to be very, very happy with the state of farming the Necromech stuff, and it should be relatively easy, kind of no matter what level you're at, as long as you are able to kill the kind of that level of enemy whenever you get to the necromech fights. And that the test for that is really the mobile defense as you go down into those vaults. You should be totally fine to farm this without much frustration, I think. Obviously, that remains to be seen on the actual launch of this, and I will be testing it. But yeah, seems really good. In addition, we know that changes are coming to the actual usable necromechs also. And apparently Void Rig is going to receive its changes on launch, and Bone Widow will be coming with the echoes of Whispers coming at some point in the future. With that, we are finally out of our first couple of sections of what was going on in this dev stream. Now let's talk about cross-save. So, cross-save is going to be here with Whispers in the wall, which makes me even more concerned if this update launches on like the 20th of December. So let's hope that doesn't happen. And this is going to be rolling out in phases, starting with founders. I wish it was rolling out in reverse, and I say that as a founder. I, personally, don't want to be in wave 1 of this in case something goes wrong, and I'll be playing the event and avoiding doing this as much as I can, if at all possible. However, we have 2 different things that are important to talk about with what this is, and there is also, of course, a huge just like Q&A just page for this, alongside also a whole forum post from Taylor. So we're going to be going through all of that pretty quickly here. First and foremost, you're going to be able to link your accounts, which you're going to link your accounts and choose one, which is going to be, your PC account or your console account or one of your other console accounts or whatnot. And then that will be your primary account. It will be what you will actually get whenever you log in anywhere. In addition, there's a once merge that will combine accounts. The note here is that some things will be platform locked, which means if you are a founder, for example, and you merge with a PlayStation account, when you merge those accounts, Excalibur Prime does not become available on consoles. He is platform locked to only PC. So you cannot play as Excalibur Prime on any other platform. Same thing with the special Nvidia skins. The special PlayStation skins won't go from PlayStation to PC. All of those types of exclusive items will be exclusive to where they have been exclusive to, and will not move between those. In addition to that, I think it's Nintendo platform-specific Platinum also won't move around, but the rest will. Also, Tenogen is going to stay separate between PC and console. However, if you purchased Tenogen before today's dev stream, as in not anymore, that Tenogen will work across everything whenever this launches, and you will get basically both versions of all of that stuff. That opens up a bunch of questions about how Tenogen you don't own will work whenever you log in other places, and I think makes Tenogen a bit more of a questionable purchase, especially depending on how this is also going to work whenever mobile is considered in the future, because I think for my part, and perhaps a lot of us, I'm going to want to play on PC as I normally have been, or if I was a console player, I'd be moving to PC. And then whenever the mobile Warframe comes out, I would play on there, or at least get my logins on there. And if my Tenogen's going to work on the mobile, if I have the PC, or what's going to go on there, is going to be a bunch of different questions for me. With that, though, basically, if you buy Tenogen on console in the future, it will stay on console and not be on PC. And if you buy it on PC, it will stay on PC and not be on console going forward. That is actually specifically what this is about. And they go over just all of the things here. But really, the main thing that I'm concerned about is not necessarily Tenogen pricing on different places, or getting it for platinum or whatever. I actually really don't care about how much it's going to cost on PC versus console and so on and so forth. That stuff actually doesn't matter to me. As long as it's supporting the artist properly, I couldn't honestly give a shit less. My primary concern is that if I, say for example, have Tenogen on my Mesa, which I do, if I log in on an Xbox, what happens And in addition to that, if I log in on the Xbox and let's say, for example, it will only show me default Mesa Prime while I'm there. When I then log out of that and log back in on PC, will it fix my Mesa to be what she's supposed to look like with the Tenogen? Or will it screw over everything I had that I logged into that I don't have on consoles? Because for me personally, it would really, really suck if the cost of logging in on consoles was that I had to redo the fashion on like 12 Warframes every time. That just sounds like misery to me personally. So hopefully we get some clarity on how that works, or maybe it just works. Maybe, you log in and you can't see your Tenogen on consoles, and then you log back into PC and everything's still there as long as you don't change anything. That sounds fine. Maybe it like keeps the option but doesn't show. I don't know. I don't know how they're going to handle that. Sounds extra complicated to me. But yeah, hopefully it goes well. In general, though, cross save exceedingly soon, and we'll see how that launch goes. Now then, moving on, we have the Operation Gargoyles Cry. This is going to be our clan event for after launch of Whispers. And this, we don't know a lot about this. We just have some kind of general information. Number one, there are going to be no leaderboards for this, so there's like no clan competition stuff. There's no special prize for only certain clans or any business like that. And there's going to be a community goal with a cosmetic reward, which is basically a like leaf image. I don't have one here for some reason. Image. It looks like this. Doesn't that look cool? It's a neat Signa. It's going to be the first one that's available to everyone, provided we hit the community goal, which, considering this is the reward, I think there will be no problems with that. And also, they are looking into potentially having a way for people who are new and not at Whispers yet, in order to have them be able to participate. The only thing that is worth noting before this event happens is that you will need someone in your dojo that has decorating permissions, because there's a thing that you're going to need to put down in your dojo in order to participate in the event. So, with that considered, make sure you have someone in the dojo that gets online at least every once in a while that's going to be able to put this thing in your dojo. Otherwise, you're going to have some troubles whenever this event comes out. In addition, on the 29th, this is actually happening sooner. This is 5 days away. We have the new Nightwave coming. So this is a Fire and Ice themed. It's on November 29th. And this is going to have, a bunch of new rewards. It's another one of our, interim Nightwaves, although I think that these should just be considered the real Nightwaves at this point. Having gotten a bit of a sneak peek at this one whenever Reset happened, and this one just went live for a moment, it seems like it's going to be really good. It has all the usual suspects for good new player things. It has some really neat looking new cosmetics. I think the arcane for this series is Arcane Pulse, which could be better, but is totally fine. And it is going to be good. It's going to be a good Nightwave. This is going to have all of the Nightwave improvements that we've talked about in the past that I won't go into here just to save time. And we can move on. Tenobomb is happening for December. And this is also going to have the Snowball Showdown event for some reason. So this is a Conclave event that we're getting. I don't know why. You will be able to earn Conclave standing. And here's, for me personally, hoping that this goes the same way it went the last time we got a Conclave event. Because for those that don't know, the last time we got a Conclave event, the way that Conclave events have worked in the past is whenever you tie with others, you all get the max reward. So, instead of all of us suffering playing Conclave in Warframe, which has never once been good, everyone would simply hang out in a chat room of 8 people or whatever and just kind of chill and do emotes at each other, which unironically was a better time and got us the event rewards. So, hopefully, it's still like that, as opposed to us having to miserably fight one another in this event. But that is what is happening. And then in addition, of course, Tenobomb with all of the gifting stuff and all of those things are going to be occurring as well, which is much more exciting than the Snowball Showdown. Also in more exciting news, we have Gauss Prime. We got to see Gauss Prime. He looks really cool. He's going to come with an armor set and so on and so forth. It's a Primaxes that has a bunch of cosmetics with it as well. It is going to come with Exceltra and Icarius Prime. This is going to be in January of next year. So for those of you looking forward to Gauss, He looks sick. Looks really cool. Like, the Prime looks fantastic. The weird thing about him, though, is if you can see here, these are, like, ears almost that are on him. He looks like a rabbit, but they, like, slick back whenever he's in redline mode, which is kind of funny, but fun overall. And then in addition, some news about mobile Warframe. So mobile Warframe, they are sunsetting the Apple testing app on November 30th, which is fast approaching. I may do another stream with that before that thing goes away, just to kind of like show where it is for anyone interested. And also the planned release for mobile Warframe is, of course, 2024, probably late 2024, while, you know, all these things get hammered out. However, signups for the Android test are, I think, live now. Warframe.com/Android, I believe, is the link for that. So if you're on an Android phone, sign up for the testing there to see how it goes. Let me know if you get into that, and should be interesting. And finally, Soulframe is going to have a pre-alpha next month. So if you have a Soulframe account, look out for an email that's going to be hitting you potentially with some access to the pre-alpha, and that is apparently going to be like pre-alpha with only like a couple hundred players maybe for who's going to be participating in that. So, look forward to maybe getting some news out of that. There was no real information on if that's going to be like mega NDA'd or anything. Personally, I hope it's not, and then I get into it and we can talk about it because it sounds super interesting. And I'm very interested in seeing where Soulframe goes. But that is what's up for Devstream 175. In addition, we just have like the cross-save stuff here, and like this is just how it's working and the linking accounts and all that stuff, and some different information about what's going to occur that I've kind of already gone over in terms of how to merge that stuff. And then this is all of the Tenogen reasoning for like what's going to happen with that going forward, which I also honestly made a pretty good dent in terms of explaining. But if you want those specifically, those are going to be in the description down below, so check those out there on the forums and such. But yeah, hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. It's a big one. I cannot wait for Whispers in the Walls. It seems supremely interesting, and I hope you guys have been enjoying the free-to-play through, as that should that should be going very fast here this weekend pretty soon. And of course, that is 3 big old streams. If you look in like the live section of the channel, you can see everything I've done in the free to play through. I have streamed that stuff onto YouTube, and I hope you guys have been enjoying it. But yeah, that's what's up. Have a good one, and I will see you tomorrow. All right, so we're about to be into the thick of it with a lot of videos coming out. Thank you for your patience, everyone. And also, of course, as usual, thank you to the patrons, Alex Parnham, Angel SBM, Arbiter Daydream, Nuven, Plotomatic, Brandon Coggin, Brutus Salazar, Dylan Dworsky, Ethrain, Hafan, James Harsthorne, JC4 Science, John Lobdell, Joshua Adams, Luzanth, Mikkelkel, Minty Ginja, Mitchta, Nerve, Remoxidate, Tamrielic Wastelander, The Coupon of Death, Tomeworm, Waifu Wars, and Zerapir, and of course to all of the $5 patrons as well. It is hugely appreciated. With us getting into big free-to-play times, which should hopefully be excellent. Sorry if guides are a little floody on the inbox side, but it'll be a nice change of pace, perhaps.